The knock on the door came just after 10 on a cold autumn night, the kind of knock that carried fear instead of impatience. Nathan had barely finished putting his 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, to bed when he heard it again, louder this time, followed by a quiet sob from the porch. When he opened the door, his neighbor, Grace, stood there with tears streaming down her face. Her mascara had run down her cheeks, one sleeve of her sweater was torn, and she could barely keep herself standing. She looked into his eyes for only a second before whispering the words that would change both of their lives forever. "Please, don't leave me alone tonight." Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change someone's life and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that stay with you long after they end. Nathan had been raising Sophie alone ever since his wife passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness. Life had become a careful balance of school lunches, overtime shifts at a construction company in Columbus, Ohio, bedtime stories, and quiet nights filled with memories he tried not to revisit. His little brick house wasn't perfect, but it was warm, safe, and full of love. Grace had moved into the house next door only 6 months earlier. She was friendly but private, always waving politely while watering her flowers or carrying groceries inside. Nathan never asked about her past because everyone carried burdens they weren't ready to explain. That evening had started like any other. Grace had excitedly mentioned she was finally going on a date with someone she had met through mutual friends. Nathan remembered wishing her luck while Sophie smiled and told her she looked pretty. A few hours later, Grace returned looking like someone whose hope had been shattered. Nathan didn't ask questions. Instead, he invited her inside, made her a cup of hot tea, and covered her shoulders with an old blanket his late wife used to love. Sophie, awakened by the voices, quietly walked downstairs, hugged her favorite teddy bear, and offered it to Grace without saying a word. That innocent act broke whatever emotional wall Grace had been holding together, and she cried harder than before. As the hours passed, Grace slowly explained what had happened. The man she trusted had spent the evening insulting her, blaming her for things she had never done, and abandoning her miles from home after she refused to go back to his apartment. She walked through unfamiliar streets in the dark, frightened and humiliated, wondering if anyone would care if she disappeared. Every step toward home felt heavier until she remembered the gentle single father living next door, the man who always carried his daughter's backpack and never seemed too busy to smile. Nathan listened without judgment because he understood what loneliness sounded like. After losing his wife, countless nights had felt endless. There had been moments when silence was louder than any storm. He knew that sometimes people didn't need advice. They simply needed another human being willing to stay. Grace spent the night sleeping on the living room couch while Nathan remained awake in the recliner, making sure she felt safe. Early the next morning, the smell of pancakes filled the house as Sophie insisted everyone should eat breakfast together because pancakes made people happier. For the first time in months, Grace laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh, but it was real. Over the following weeks, an unexpected friendship began to grow. Grace started helping Sophie with school art projects while Nathan repaired a broken fence in Grace's backyard. Holidays no longer felt empty because they celebrated them together. Neighbors who once saw 3 strangers now saw something that looked remarkably like a family, though none of them rushed to give it a name. Grace eventually revealed an even deeper truth. Years before moving there, she had escaped an emotionally abusive relationship that had destroyed her confidence. The bad date hadn't simply been disappointing. It had reopened wounds she thought had healed forever. Knocking on Nathan's door had been the hardest thing she had ever done because asking for help felt like admitting weakness. Instead, she discovered that real strength sometimes meant trusting someone enough to say, "I can't do this alone." Nathan's own heart slowly healed too. Watching Sophie laugh with Grace reminded him that love didn't replace what had been lost. It simply created room for hope to grow beside grief. His daughter, who once asked why their house felt so quiet, now filled every weekend with baking cookies, movie nights, and backyard games involving all three of them. Nearly a year after that unforgettable night, the neighborhood gathered for its annual block party. Children ran across the park while families shared homemade meals under strings of glowing lights. Grace looked at Nathan as Sophie chased Bubbles through the evening air, and both of them silently realized their lives had changed because of a single knock on a door that could have gone unanswered. Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't rescuing someone from danger. Sometimes it's opening your door, offering a warm cup of tea, and reminding another person they don't have to face their darkest night by themselves. Compassion rarely arrives with grand speeches or dramatic moments. More often, it begins with ordinary people choosing kindness when they have every reason to stay behind closed doors. Special request: before this story ends, please leave a comment with the words, "No one should face the night alone." Your message may encourage someone who is quietly struggling today. Months later, Nathan and Grace stood side by side watching Sophie board her school bus on the first day of a new school year. The morning sunlight reflected across their small neighborhood, and everything felt different from the night fear had brought Grace to his doorstep. Their story wasn't about romance arriving overnight. It was about broken people finding hope, a little girl teaching adults what unconditional kindness looks like, and one simple decision proving that compassion can rewrite someone's future. Some doors protect us from the world, but the right door, opened at the right moment, can become the beginning of a brand new life. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world that kindness, love, and second chances still exist.